Hi everyone! This video has been one that I've been really excited to make and a topic I'm really excited to talk about. For this assignment, we're talking about different income streams and diversifying, and one thing that you might have noticed about me is I really like to merge my hobbies, and so this is another variation of that. I'm going to be talking about pixel art today and how pixel art can actually be used as a way to make crochet patterns. A lot of people might not know this, but any pixel art can be translated into a crochet pattern because each pixel can be turned into a stitch. So each pixel can stand for one stitch. So pixel art like this can be transformed into this with yarn, which I think is really cool and a lot of people might not know about it. So that's what I want to talk about today, is how artists use the niche of fiber art to create a second income. Let's get into it. Should I show? I should show what I'm working on, actually. Hold on. So the best way that I can think to explain this is to simply show you. How does pixel art become a crochet pattern? I'm going to show you something that I'm currently working on that I would say falls into a similar category because the method is the same. I'm currently working on this grid right here, which isn't exactly pixels, but it could, for the sake of this demonstration, imagine each circle is a pixel, okay? Now, this is a very simple pattern. It just says Lana Del Rey on it, but I'm translating this currently into a sweater, which I have here, and it is not currently done. It's in the process, but I think you'll get the point. I am currently here in the sweater. For each red space that you see here, I have chosen to use pink and blue yarn. So for each red space here, I put a stitch in pink, which is each one of these bits here is a stitch. So this is one stitch, this is two stitch. And I actually have like a really because there was no written pattern for this, I am currently working off of a Photoshop drive, or like a Photoshop file, and I am writing in the pattern, which I will show you a little screen cap or screen recording right here now, where I am like counting the stitches. So for pixel art, and what I would do is I would make the art, and then for the pattern itself to be sold, I would write below, like in a PDF form, you would make the art and then write out the stitch pattern, like how many. So like, for example, here, right? You would write how many of these blue stitches you would need, and then there's two pink stitches here, so I would say two pink, and then you go back to blue, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blue, and then you go back to pink. So you'd write that out so that it's easier to follow than just looking at the grid itself and trying to, put it together. But the pixel art is what's going to grab your attention, and then you just have to write out each pixel. Yes, it's time consuming in the moment to go out and write each, like count the stitches and write it down, but once the pattern is published and it's being sold, that whole process is pretty automatic, and so you will just have like a residual side income. So now that I've explained what I plan to do and how it works, let's get into how do you make money off of doing that. Artists make money by selling their patterns on online digital storefronts like Etsy or Ravelry, which many of you may not know. Ravelry is a fiber arts based platform where crocheters and knitters can share their current yarn stashes, projects, and pattern designs, both free designs and paid designs. The internet has become a huge resource for fiber artists. Many use platforms like Instagram to build a community of fellow hobbyists. Many of the larger creators have turned their hobby into a source of side income by sharing their pattern designs, offering made-to-order yarn products, or even expanding on their love of yarn by creating hand-dyed yarn or fiber, which can be spun into yarn. One of my favorite creators who releases patterns similar to what I plan to do is Made in the Moment. They have multiple streams of income and what I would consider to be a large following for a niche community like fiber arts. Made in the Moment sells patterns on Etsy, as shown here, some of which have a pixel art style to them. Most of the patterns that I have found while doing research have a price point of around $10. The one thing that I didn't cover that I want to include here while we're talking about Etsy storefronts and pattern selling is what does that look like as a seller? Because I kind of talked about like general idea for pricing, but I didn't really go into the process of actually selling something on Etsy. And I found a really good article by Printify that I'll include in the description that kind of goes over the selling process. And I'm going to just kind of touch the highlights here, but I'm getting this information from the link in the description. The main thing that I think is important is including, first, obviously, you need to make your storefront, but when it comes to listing products, keywords are really important, and whatever products you're going to be using, you're going to want to include keywords so that people can find you when they're searching. So for me, I would want to include crochet and crochet pattern and pixel pattern and things like that in my keywords because that's how people will find me. Another important thing, I talked about how the selling process is pretty automated because they're digital products. You're selling a PDF file and it just kind of automatically will send it to whoever purchased it. And I didn't really go into how that happens. That is an important part because when you are listing items on your storefront, there is a specific option that you need to click to specify that it is a digital item, and specifically a digital file. There is actually an option for automatic renewal within the listings, and so that's something that you want to have turned on so that you aren't manually processing each purchase. It's just automated for you. So from what I can tell, these are all things that you're going to need to be enabling when you're listing the product. It's all within the listing settings. You need to have the automatic options listed so that you don't have to be doing it manually, which is important if your intention is for this to be residual side income. You're going to want to make the process as automated as possible. Now I want to move on to the other forms of income that are popular for fiber artists. Another way artists make income is through selling their creations. A creative way that I've seen this done is by Stitched by Emma. She has an Etsy storefront where she also sells patterns, but that's not her only way that she makes money. She also has a Depop page, and I haven't seen any other fiber artists do this, but she has a separate storefront for one-of-a-kind products that she has made for herself. The ones that she no longer wants, she will list onto her Depop as a way to recycle her wardrobe in a way that's making her money. One of the most common ways that fiber artists make money is through products. I think it's Moon T Yasha, who is a crochet artist from Ukraine. She is very, very popular and very successful in the selling of her handmade weighted stuffed animals. I'm going to pop up in the corner here and kind of show you her storefront really quickly. What I think is really, really cool about her style of selling is she sells patterns as well on Etsy, but a huge source of her income, as you can see here, most of these products are sold out, and that's because they are either one of a kind or they are very, very limited products where there's only a couple made. And as you can see, these are high price points, but all of them are sold pretty much. And she also sells them in collections. So like all of these here, you can see at the end, there's this collection. And so she puts them onto the website in batches, and she's sold pretty much all of them, and they're high ticket items. So she's really making a good amount of money on here. And I think it's really cool. A lot of the time when there are products. They're either collections like this or they are made to order, and I feel like this is a very creative way to do it. So I chose to highlight her. The final means of income that I want to talk about, and then we'll wrap this up, is YouTube as a source of income. When I said that Made in the Moment has multiple sources of income, I was including YouTube in that. There are many online creators who make art or make crochet or fiber art related content on YouTube, whether that is patterns or whether that is talking about topics within the field. I found this resource from Credit Karma, actually, talking about what YouTubers typically make in AdSense per video. And what I found, as shown here, is that typically the average for YouTubers, it's around $18 per 1,000 views. So I'm going to hop over to this video here as an example of somebody who made a crochet pattern in a video format instead of a written format to be sold on Etsy. And we can kind of calculate here that they have around close to 5,000, but we'll round down to 4,000. I think it's 4,950. So we can kind of use what Credit Karma said to assume that they made around $72 on this video, which isn't a lot, but a lot of the time people who make videos like this have additional means to make money, whether that is through brand deals or like sponsorships on the video itself, being paid to advertise a product somewhere in the video, or I've seen a lot, not just with crochet or fiber artists, but many artists in general. There is a website called Ko-fi, K-O-F-I, if I remember right. And a lot of the time, these artists will have a link to that on their platforms where you can tip the artist. So if you used their video to make their pattern and you would like to donate or tip them because you can't pay for the pattern directly, you could send them like $10 in a similar way to how you would Venmo somebody, right? And this isn't necessarily like guaranteed income, but every now and then, you might get an additional donation. And I just wanted to wrap this up by explaining why I chose such a wide variety of crochet artists and not just specifically the niche that I plan on pursuing, which is pixel art as a form of crochet pattern. And that really is just because not a lot of people are doing it. I think Made in the Moment is the only other person that I can concretely say I've seen have that specific type of pattern online of pixel art patterns. I'm sure that there are more, but they are like one of the bigger ones. And for most pattern designers, it's not limited to just pixel art, and a lot of the time it's not even included, and I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. I think that's something that I could bring to the table is, making interesting patterns from an art standpoint. I guess the best way to explain it would be, while other artists are making patterns for sweaters, I would be making a pattern for art that can be turned into a sweater. My priority would be a really interesting design, and that can be translated into a tote bag or a sweater or a wall hanging, like a tapestry on your wall. And instead of just focusing on clothing, it's more so wearable art. Because it's so varied and there's so many different people who make an income off of this, what I learned throughout researching this still applies to my goal of pixel art as a form of crochet patterns. I think the fact that there aren't many who specifically do that is actually a good thing. I think that means that there's not as much competition for it, but there is still enough of a market where people want crochet patterns, and so I bring something new to the table in that case. I know that there are people who would like that. I'm one of those people, and I see those people online all the time because this is also one of my communities. I hope that I was able to bring something to the table for you as you were watching, and maybe you learned a little bit about a topic that you might not really know anything about. I know it's a pretty niche category, so I'm really grateful that I was able to talk a little bit about it here because it is an interest of mine. So thank you so much for watching.